It used to be that the only way to success was to go to college and get a job with a good company. Blue-collar jobs like plumbers, carpenters, electricians, welders, and others were looked down on and seen as jobs for people who weren't smart enough to hack it in college. Times have definitely changed, and people are now talking about a new generation of blue-collar millionaires. So what happened? Why are we seeing this shift? And what does this mean for the economy as a whole and for our younger people who are now entering the workforce? When I was growing up, I was told that the only way to the American dream was to go to college, get a degree, and get a job working for some corporation. And there was a time where that was true. There was a time where you could go and you could get a job, a good job, working for a stable company. You could buy a home, you could land yourself a pension. Companies used to be loyal to their employees, and even a low-level factory worker could get a job that paid enough to raise a family and live in a comfortable home. But that just doesn't seem to be true anymore.
Ooh, yeah.
Today, you don't see company loyalty like there was in the past, and college costs have ballooned out of control. In this graph, you can see that college costs on average have risen by almost 500% since 1980. That is around 10.5% per year on average, compared to the 6.4% average annual increase in inflation over that same time. There are a lot of reasons for those rising costs, including higher pay to professors and administrators and reduced state funding, among other things. But the biggest problem is that because of the lie that we've all been told that you have to get a college degree, millions of Americans have gone into massive amounts of debt in order to pay for college, and student loans have become a huge problem. The amount of debt held by college students has increased by 232% since 2006 to around $1.73 trillion. That is a huge strain on the economy at large, and it can really sink the futures of individual young people who hold these loans. Now, let me just say something about student loans for just a minute. Now, I really try to avoid political topics on this channel, but there has been a lot of talk about forgiving student loan debt. And while I do think that would be great for the individual people that hold those loans, there are a bunch of problems with that idea. One of them is the people who scrimped and saved and worked their way through college in order to graduate without debt or with much smaller loans. Those people are essentially punished or penalized for working really hard, as opposed to the people who took out tons of loans and didn't work as hard. The other issue is that you haven't actually fixed the fundamental problems that got us into this mess in the first place. And so you may forgive those loans today, but we're gonna find ourselves in the same situation again if we don't fix those fundamental problems. And what are those fundamental problems? Well, one of them is the ballooning costs of college that we already mentioned. Beyond that, there are predatory lenders and for-profit colleges that are also predatory. But the biggest problem, in my opinion, is that loans are just too easy to get for really large amounts without reasonable prospects for repayment. A $200,000 loan to become a doctor or a lawyer makes sense, but the same loan for a degree in underwater basket weaving is a stretch. And we should incentivize people to go into the fields that are expected to be in demand in the future and not give large loans to people who will not be able to pay them back in their chosen career field. Now that means that some people are going to need to make different choices about maybe what the degree they pursue or what college that they go to. And that's going to be hard, but you know what? That's called life. We all have to make tough choices about what we do and where we go. And it's much better than saddling yourself with debt for the rest of your life. And the government not only allows that, but they facilitate it. But here's a simple truth. Some people just should not go to college. Now, let me be clear when I say that. I'm not making a value judgment here or insulting anyone. In the past, people have said similar things to degrade people or say that they're not good enough or smart enough to go to college. But my point here is that people can make a very good living by getting vocational training at a much more reasonable price than going to college. And it's even possible for those people to make even more money than the people that went to college. And that doesn't even count for the loans that those other people have to pay back. Now, the trades are not going to solve everything. They're not a panacea. There's a whole set of other problems that need to be worked out. One of them is starting wages for blue-collar workers, which tend to be very low, lower than fast food in some cases. And the work can be grueling. But there are plenty of blue-collar jobs that can pay more than $100,000 a year once you're established, including plumbers, electricians, and some types of mechanics. But $100,000 a year is not $1 million. So how do blue-collar workers go from a workaday salary to becoming millionaires? Well, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. First is that because there has been such an emphasis over the past 20 years that everyone should go to college, there is a shortage of skilled tradespeople. And those workers are getting older and nearing retirement. What that means is that over the next few years, there are going to be fewer plumbers out there. There are going to be fewer electricians out there, fewer welders out there. And the plumbers and welders and electricians that are out there are going to be able to charge more for their services because there's fewer of them. And it'll be harder to get them. It's going to be a real challenge. In fact, there's an old joke about a plumber who goes out to fix a sink. And when the wife complains about how expensive it is and that her husband, who is a doctor, doesn't even make that much money, the plumber simply says, well, maybe he should have been a plumber. So like I said, there is a huge shortage of skilled tradesmen, and it's only going to get worse. In fact, I made a video about that a while back, and you should really check that out. I'll link it in the description below. But the main point here is that unless we encourage more young people to go into the trades, unless we bring back shop classes to high school and reduce the stigma against blue-collar workers, then the shortage will only get worse and the cost of hiring a skilled tradesperson will only go up. That will impact the cost of home maintenance and repair in the future, and of course, it'll impact the cost of building new homes and lead to higher home prices generally. I still haven't explained though how someone can become a millionaire working in a trade. Well, the way that it happens for most is that they get into a trade, they realize that they're good at it, and they start making a bit of money. Then they go into business for themselves, first as a one-man operation, then they may get an employee or two, and then after a few years, they may add a dozen more. There are a bunch of small businesses like this all over the country, and the owners of these companies can make a very good living. There was a recent article in the Wall Street Journal that actually talked about another way that people in blue-collar jobs are making millions. It's called private equity. Here's a quote directly from that article that explains. Private equity firms across the country have been scooping up home services like HVAC, that is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, as well as plumbing and electrical companies. They hope to profit by running larger, more profitable operations. Their growth marks a major shift, taking home services firms away from family operators by offering mom and pop shops 7-figure and 8-figure paydays. It is a contrast from previous generations when more owners handed companies down to their children or employees. So private equity is essentially made up of Wall Street investors, and they have tons and tons of money at their disposal, and they're always looking for their next deal. They see the skilled trades market as an untapped market and as an opportunity to make money. And the owners of these small companies have a really hard time saying no when they receive a 7 or 8-figure offer, and who could blame them, honestly? Now, there are two ways that this can go. The first is what we have seen in a lot of different industries that private equity has touched, and that is that things only get worse. Customers and employees are squeezed, and every last dime is taken from the business to line the pockets of the investors. There is another way that this can go, however, and that is a way that benefits both the employees and the owners of the business. Some companies will offer their employees equity in addition to a regular paycheck, which means that they become part owners of the business. If the business eventually gets sold or does really well, the employees who have that equity will benefit from that. The main thing this does, and the reasons why private equity would want to do that, is that it actually encourages better workers. Those workers work harder because they know that the work that they're doing is going to benefit themselves as well. And that actually grows the business faster than if they were to just raid it and take all the money. The main thing this does is it encourages better workers. Workers will work harder when they also benefit from the success of the business versus just lining the pockets of their bosses.
It's a problem of motivation, all right? Now, if I work my ass off and Initech ships a few extra units, I don't see another dime. So where's the motivation?
In the end, though, not every company works that way. But if you're lucky enough to get on at a company that offers you equity and you get on at the right time, it is possible that even as a frontline worker, frontline tradesman, you can actually become a millionaire if that company is successful. So the point of all of this is that the trades are a viable career path, more so now than ever before. You can earn a good wage in the trades, and if you start a company and that company is successful, you can become a millionaire. And if you start working for a company that also offers you equity, you could become a millionaire if that company is successful and you get on at the right time. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you know people who've become wealthy by working in the trades? What trade were they in and how did they make it work? If you work in the trades, how are things going right now? Are you seeing the age of the tradespeople go up? Are you seeing new people come in? Leave us a comment and let us know. I love reading those comments and learning from you guys in the different areas you're in. It's really fascinating to read. So thanks again for watching. I hope that you found this video interesting, and if you did, be sure to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next one.